Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Desk to Data Center. Today we are going to build our Linux virtual machine, much like our Windows virtual machine from last week. So a lot of the stuff is going to be the same. Just stay tuned and we'll see you over there. Okay, as you can see, we've already kind of built our virtual machine. It's just like how we were building virtual machines in Windows. We've added 2 CPU, 4 gigs of RAM, a 60 gig hard drive. Linux does not need as much space on initial install as Windows does. So 60 is fine. We're putting it in VLAN 31 so that we know exactly which network we want to be in, because that's going to be the one for Linux. And then we're doing a VMNextNet 3 adapter like last time, and a data store ISO file pointed to the Rocky 8.7 ISO. And there we go, it's built. Now we just got to start her up. I chose Rocky Linux because it is what we are currently using in our data center for a lot of our stuff. It's RHEL similar, much like Centos, except it's not stream, so it's not the beta monster in the room, or it's just not getting patched as quickly frequently. Now obviously you can control that via your own repos and things of that nature, but I much prefer having Rocky / Alma around. So we'll just kind of go through the boot system here and we'll do a simple, pretty sure it's still a GUI install. It's been a while since I've done this, much like it's been a while since I did Windows Server, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit, and hopefully you guys can all read that well enough. We'll make it a little bit bigger. So again, Linux in a server admin situation, you'll use this for stuff like SMTP servers, so your email relaying, your DNS. You can use it for DHCP if you want to, though again, if you're going to have Windows, I recommend Windows for all of that. What else can you use Linux for? You can use Linux to actually manage your Windows domain if you want to, using Kerberos systems, and you can build out scripts to do automatic user creation and things of that nature. We're going to stick with that for our keyboard layout and our language because, yeah, English. We'll give it a second here, let it breathe. Keyboard US, install local media, software, server with GUI, no thank you. Server only. Some people will even do minimal install and then add things as they need them. We're just going to do server. It's going to give us some packages to start with. And then again, of course, we can add them as we go. Give that a second. We don't do that. Here we go. We have network. We can turn that on. Click. We again do not have DHCP, so we have to put in all of our information for our IPv6 settings, and you're on VLAN 1, so we will do 192.168.31.2. Oh, will it let CIDR? It will. Cool. 8.31.1. And there we go. And then we do that save. Oh yeah, we should probably put in some DNS servers. There we go. Save. It's taking its sweet time. We will set a root password while that's going on. You'll notice that we do all of this before the OS is installed, which is different from Windows in that you do a lot of this. You do some of this while oh my goodness, I can't type. There we go. It is weak. You'll have to press done twice. Bloop, bloop. That is a shame. We're not going to make a user a PV. So, oh, here we go. We should make this a manual and hit save. Yeah, now it'll just turn on. And that part's done. So now it can probably download updates. We're going to leave all the rest of this alone. And we do have to provision this. Done. It's going to do automatic, which I think it will show us before we finish. Okay, it won't, but let's take a look at what it's going to do. Oh, I wish it would show us. Here we go. Nope, that doesn't show me anything. It's a pretty safe layout. We won't have to go through that much. Unless you're doing some sort of fancy distro, we'll just let it rock like this and we'll hit begin install. So this will go, it'll take a couple of minutes. This will be much faster than the Windows one, so I will be able to edit out a lot of the video, I won't have to edit as much. Put it that way. And yeah, and then we'll be up and running in Linux, and we'll even have networking. So we can even take a look at that. It should download updates during the install so that we have less to download after the install. Let me know in the comments what you want this Linux server used for. Do you want to see a wiki installed on here, or a monitoring tool, or, you know, some other Linux based thing, a web server? You know, we can do quite a few things via just a web server and some wiki packages and a couple of GitLab repos. Golly. And then, of course, we can add this to Active Directory when we get a domain controller, or not if we don't feel like we need to. That's sort of a back and forth kind of argument. You add it to Active Directory, then your users can sign into it without having to learn a new username and password. But if you remove it from Active Directory, if Active Directory becomes compromised for some reason, there's less chance that this server will be compromised. And sometimes what you do is you just attach the applications inside Linux to Active Directory as opposed to the entire system, so that users have single sign-on, but the system is still protected from most compromised type attacks. Also, let me know in the comments what your favorite distro is for server management, server, you know, deployments. Do you use Ubuntu server? Do you use Red Hat? Do you use Rocky, Centos, Alma, OpenSUSE? Some BSD flavor? What do you use? Let me know down in the comments. Let me know if there's something you want to see distro-wise install guide for VMware. We can go over that, no problem. Just let me know down in the comments. Easy. I'm kind of thinking we might make this Linux server our GitLab Community Edition server, because that will give us a Git server, a wiki server, essentially, so we can do documentation there, as well as a web server, so we can kind of learn a little bit about firewall rules and SSL certificates and things of that nature. This would be a good system to do that. And it's got enough space, since I'm the only person developing any code, that we don't have to worry about growing the disk for any reason. But we will show you how to do that, because growing disks in VMware is a pretty important thing to be able to do. And it's pretty easy. And we'll probably do a separate video where we do Windows and Linux growth at the same time, just so you can see it, because doing it in Windows takes like 5 seconds. Linux, it can take a little longer if you're doing LVMs and things like that. And we'll explain what an LVM is, and a physical volume, and an LV, a logical volume, and do an F-disk partitioning and all that jazz, and different partition types. I'm not even sure what type of partitions it shows, whether we're getting XFS, ext4, ext3. We'll take a look at that once we finish this install and get into the system. Okay, that took a little bit longer than I thought, so maybe it is about the same as Windows. We're just gonna reboot and get started. We'll make sure our CD-ROM gets unmounted, so we don't have to deal with that. Don't need that anymore. And there we go. And we'll boot into the system. We're gonna log in locally the first time, just to make sure we can SSH, so that we can connect remotely, and I will show you that, and then we'll take a look at the system overall. So it'll be just a minute. All right, here we are at the login. Yes, there is a web console. No, I don't recommend you use it. It's handy, but you really don't need it. So the first thing we're gonna do is let me preface this. Sorry, let me preface this. You're gonna see me use both the new style commands and the old style commands, depending on which way my brain decides to work. So the old way to check things was to use a command called service, and you would type something like that. Is SSHD running? Cool, it is. The new way to do it is systemctl status, and then it will autocomplete. We just need sshd.service. Cool, it's running. Let's see if firewall D is running. It is. Cool. All right. And the last thing we need to do, warning allows zone drifting is enabled. This is considered insecure configuration, blah, blah. Doesn't matter right now. We have nano. Yay, we have nano. I mean, I use Vim. I don't use Vim. So we're going to check the SSHD config, because login as permit root login really should be disabled, but it comes enabled by default. So we can SSH in. Let's make sure we have Networking. We might not have DNS. Looks like we might not have networking. No, we have networking. We should be able to SSH, okay? So give me just a second and we'll SSH over. 192.168.31.2. SSH. We could fill this out with root, but we're not gonna. It's gonna pop up. We're gonna type in root. Anytime now, SSH. You said you were permitting root login. Hey, there it goes. All right, and now we're in. This is our server. So there's our partition layout. So df-h to see the partition layout. Our slash directory, which is like, you know, root volume, 37 gigs. So it gave about half of it to root. And then it made a home volume at 18 gigs. It put about 1 gig in boot. And then it's got 1 gig dedicated to tempfs, really 2 gigs, essentially half of the RAM. And then another tempfs at 374, giving us roundabout our setup. So let me explain kind of how these partitions lay out. We'll do fdisk-l. That'll show us how it split it up. So it did SDA1 for the boot, the EFI. It did SDA2 for 1 gig of Linux file system storage. And SDA3 is the rest of it, 58.4 gig. And then what we will see here is that these different disks here are part of more than likely dev SDA3. So let's take a look at VG display. So this is volume groups. So this part is your volume group, RHEL_linserv1. As you can see, volume group, LVM2, 58.41 gigs. These are LVs. So we do LV display. And there's all of our LVs. So you'll see that the volume group is here, as we saw, and then you'll see under the volume group, we have 1, 2, 3 logical volumes. Swap, which is it's set to 3.96 gig. Home is set to 17.86 gig. And root is set to, looks like a little less than 36.59 gig. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Just give me an accurate number. But that's all cool. And that is how Linux likes to break out its stuff. So think of it like this. There's a big block of storage, and then you create a logical volume or a volume group. And for this instance, it's called RVLV and linserv1. And then under that volume group, we can create logical volumes to split up that storage even more. The benefits to things like this is we can add more drives or grow the drive that these volumes live on, and then grow each separate little volume inside of it. As opposed to, like, technically you can do this with Windows, but Windows doesn't usually do it like this. Windows goes, here's a C drive, boom, Windows lives there. Also, all user documents live there. If you want to install apps somewhere else, you're going to need to add a whole nother drive letter, which can be a different volume, and it should be a different volume, because if you add multiple drive letters in Windows on a single drive, it gets messy. But here it doesn't get messy because it displays it much more cleanly, more balanced, and it has percentage usage, and it locks each other out so they don't consume each other. Let's check out the mount table. So cat etc fs tab. This is going to show us how our drives get mounted. So you'll see that we have dev mapper RL linserv1 root. It's an XFS mount, defaults 00. Basically, this is the main part to be curious about is, was it going to do ext4, NFS, XFS? NFS is network file service. XFS is kind of the new hotness. ext4 is around. ext3 is still available. There's tons of different ways to do it. Swap is one, and we'll go into a lot of that stuff at different times as we're going through things. So the next thing we're going to do, let's see if there's any updates. Let's see if we can get to the internet. This is the old way. I feel like we can't because we don't have any good DNS servers. Yep. So this is called NM2E. This is a way to modify your network settings inside a Linux VM at any point. So we've got 888 in there. Oh, we don't want to do that. We really want our own DNS servers, but for now, this will have to do. They're going to let me out to the internet? It is not. I feel like I've got something slightly misconfigured on my network switch, but that's okay. We still have internal networking, and that's really all we need for right now. We can get the rest going other times. So then here's where you can see your RAM. But some really cool things I want to show with mobaxterm while we're in here is remote monitoring. So this is really cool. It's telling me the host name. It's telling me how much CPU we're using. Here's a graphical graph to show the CPU usage instead of a number. Here's how much RAM we're using. Here is our transfer data in and out on the network adapter. Here's how long it's been up. Here is who's connected. So root is on here twice. We have one local connection, and we have this SSH session. And then here are our partitions that we just looked at earlier, all laid out. And that's it. We've installed Linux. Let me know in the comments if you liked the video. Let me know what you'd like to see us do with Linux server. And like I said, thanks for your time. I hope you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and let me know what you want to see next. Thanks, and have a good night.